Super Typhoon Haiyan, 2013. A storm with the greatest intensity in history, its strength comparable to that of a tsunami disaster. At 4:30 a.m. on November 8, 2013, Super Typhoon Haiyan from the western Pacific struck the island of Samar, Philippines, with winds of 313 km/h, at times reaching up to 370 km/h at the storm's center, equivalent to a Category 5 super typhoon on the Saffir-Simpson scale. It swept through the islands of Leyte, Cebu, and Palawan in succession. The speed was so overwhelming that the U.S. Navy's warning center issued an alert about a major disaster threatening the Philippines. Massive waves surged to heights of 3 to 4 meters. From above, the once beautiful coastal city of Tacloban in Leyte province, west of the capital Manila, now looked like hundreds of thousands of matchboxes being crushed. Large buildings and about 90% of homes were destroyed, and public infrastructure was completely paralyzed, akin to the aftermath of a nuclear bombing. People died as debris crushed them and were swept away by the murky floodwaters. Hunger and thirst were everywhere, with many people exhausted, but still desperately searching for anything left under the rubble of their homes. Children who had lost their families sat scattered along the roads. The most intense storm in history caused $14.5 billion in damages. In terms of human casualties, a total of 7,000 people died and nearly 30,000 were injured, mostly in Tacloban and surrounding areas like Cebu and Ormoc. However, according to international sources, the number of casualties could be much higher due to the lack of comprehensive data from rural areas that were also devastated by the typhoon. After wreaking havoc in the Philippines, Haiyan moved directly toward Quang Ninh and Haiphong in Vietnam before weakening. The storm did not cause any loss of life, but it unroofed nearly 500 houses, sank 20 boats, and caused power outages in 6 out of 8 districts of the province. A 52-meter antenna of the Uong B city radio and television station was knocked down by the strong winds. At 1:00 a.m. on December 26, 2004, during the main days of the Christmas week, a powerful earthquake with a magnitude of 9.3 on the Richter scale struck near the island of Sumatra, off the west coast of Sumatra, Indonesia. The earthquake caused our planet to tremble by up to 10 millimeters. An energy equivalent to 23,000 atomic bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima, Japan, was released, triggering a deadly series of tsunamis that spread across the Indian Ocean. Massive waves, reaching a record height of up to 30 meters, successively swept through and devastated the coastal regions of Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Myanmar, India, and even reached Port Elizabeth in South Africa, far across the ocean from the epicenter, creating storm surges as high as 1.5 meters. The city of Banda Aceh, at the northern tip of Sumatra, Indonesia, was the closest to the epicenter. The tsunami struck within just 20 minutes, with a speed of over 800 km/h. Hundreds of villages were wiped out, and 170,000 people, including 1/3 of them being children, lost their lives. Houses, trees, and vehicles were swept away by the dark, murky waters. 1 hour and 30 minutes later, it struck the coastal provinces of Phang Nga and Phuket in Thailand. Due to low awareness, many people, including children, curiously gathered to observe and collect sea creatures and objects that had washed ashore. Some tourists even playfully chased the waves, unaware of the deadly disaster approaching. The waves swept through the land of smiles, claiming the lives of 5,000 people. An hour later, the waves hit the southeastern coast of India near the city of Chennai, pushing a surge of debris-laden water inland and killing over 10,000 people. mostly women and children. Sri Lanka was one of the most severely devastated places. 30,000 people were swept away by the waves, and hundreds of thousands were left homeless. The destructive waves came in multiple surges throughout the day, resulting in the deaths of more than 50,000 people, bringing the total death toll of the disaster to nearly 230,000, including 9,000 Europeans who were on vacation there. 1,400 people went missing, and 126,900 others were displaced, leaving severe consequences on the economy, environment, and posing threats of disease and social instability. The estimated damage from the disaster reached $10 billion, making it the deadliest and most catastrophic tsunami in history. On August 24, 2005, the National Weather Service, NWS, issued several severe warnings about the danger posed by Hurricane Katrina. They advised residents in coastal areas to prepare for evacuation, emphasizing that this was a storm capable of causing significant damage and life-threatening conditions. These warnings were widely communicated through the media and local agencies to ensure that people could prepare and evacuate in a timely manner before Hurricane Katrina made landfall. 322 kilometers southeast of the Bahamas, the tropical storm named Katrina began to form rapidly, sending a threat to the existing peace of the United States. After moving into southern Florida, causing minor flooding, widespread power outages, and resulting in 12 deaths, by August 28th, Katrina unexpectedly intensified into a super cyclone in the Atlantic and became a Category 5 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson scale, with wind gusts reaching up to 280 km/h. It then shifted direction northward, heading straight toward the coast of Louisiana, United States. This was when the storm began its devastation, spreading terror across 5 states along the Gulf of Mexico. 36 tornadoes continuously struck, causing one of the most catastrophic natural disasters in U.S. history. The most severe damage was inflicted on the state of Louisiana, where approximately 1,300 people lost their lives, most of them African Americans and poor residents living in slums. The city of New Orleans, the capital of Louisiana, was nearly submerged by storm surges and rising seawater. Nearly 80% of the city was flooded. In areas where the storm passed, many homes were completely destroyed. Cars were swept away by floodwaters or tossed by the wind, and countless large trees were uprooted or knocked over. Many local residents climbed onto rooftops amidst the vast sea of water, waiting to be rescued. Not stopping there, the tornadoes within Hurricane Katrina devastated over 1.3 million acres of forest in Mississippi, destroyed 30 oil rigs and 9 refineries. The U.S. forestry industry suffered $5 billion in damages, leaving thousands of residents unemployed after the storm. With total damages reaching $125 billion, Katrina officially became the costliest hurricane of all time. On the night of July 9, 1958, an earthquake with a magnitude of 7.7 to 8.3 on the Richter scale caused a massive landslide on the northeastern shore of Lituya Bay, a T-shaped fjord along the southern coast of Alaska. The earthquake occurred along the Fairweather Fault, causing over 40 million cubic meters of material at an elevation of 914 meters to plunge from the mountainside into the waters of Greenbird Inlet. Part of the debris struck a glacier, leading to the formation of a tsunami wave over 30 meters high that crashed into the southwestern shore. Nothing could stop the wave as it continued along the entire length of Lituya Bay and headed straight into the Gulf of Alaska. What is notable here is that the strong impact of the earthquake, combined with aftershocks and landslides, caused the wave's height to surpass a record-breaking 524 meters, making it the largest mega-tsunami in Earth's history. Its sound could be heard from more than 80 kilometers away. With such a terrifying height, the wall of water could engulf the 443-meter-tall Empire State Building in the United States. Millions of trees along both shores of the bay were uprooted and swept away. That night, as a few fishermen were still out at sea, the monstrous wave swept two of them and their boat out to the open ocean. Howard Ulrich's boat, along with his 7-year-old son, was also struck by the wave, but he managed to steer it back to the surface. Both miraculously survived after the waters receded and later shared their story, which has since been considered one of the most unbelievable tales in the world. Fortunately, it occurred far from populated areas, and the population density there was sparse, so the tsunami did not cause significant human casualties. However, the wave served as a warning from Mother Nature about the potential for a catastrophic tsunami in the future. It's hard to imagine that if this wave had struck major cities in the United States, places like New York, including its skyscrapers, would have likely been submerged by the sea. Bhola supercyclone, the deadliest supercyclone of all time. Over 500,000 people killed. On November 8, 1970, originating from the South China Sea, the remnants of Tropical Storm Nora moved westward across the Malay Peninsula, forming a particularly dangerous low-pressure area over the Bay of Bengal. Within just 4 consecutive days, under favorable conditions, the low-pressure area rapidly developed into a violent cyclone, reaching a peak with winds of 240 km/h and a pressure of 960 HPA. Unexpectedly, it veered northeast and struck the eastern part of Pakistan directly. At that time, due to outdated equipment and communication methods, information about the cyclone was only vaguely identified by India. However, due to political conflicts, the country did not warn its neighboring brother when the cyclone struck. At exactly 10 p.m., an energy equivalent to hundreds of atomic bombs was released. The wind gauge at the weather station was instantly blown away. A storm surge up to 10 meters high struck the Ganges Delta region, an area with a dense network of rivers and one of the most densely populated regions of Pakistan, causing widespread flooding. The rice fields and crops of the local farmers were completely destroyed. More than 280,000 livestock were killed or swept away by the floodwaters. In the port area, the peak storm surge reached up to 4 meters above sea level, sinking 9,000 fishing boats offshore. As a result, 46,000 fishermen lost their lives, and over 30,000 others were injured. It didn't stop there. The devastating cyclone continued to sweep through 13 islands, wiping out hundreds of villages and claiming the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. According to reports, no signs of life remained on the islands. After engulfing eastern Pakistan, the deadly force of Bhola swiftly moved toward India, striking a cargo ship weighing over 5,000 tons, resulting in the deaths of more than 50 people. It caused heavy rainfall and widespread flooding, with an average rainfall of 130 millimeters. It wasn't until the following day that the cyclone began to weaken and eventually dissipated. According to statistics, more than 3.6 million people were directly affected by the storm. Approximately 500,000 people lost their lives, and the total damage was estimated at around $529 million. Famine and disease spread continuously, and international aid poured in from all over to assist the affected regions. The government of Pakistan faced heavy criticism. The devastating natural disaster caused around 500,000 deaths, with total damages estimated at approximately $529 million. It began forming as a tropical storm over the southwestern Caribbean Sea. On October 26, 1998, Mitch rapidly intensified into a full-blown hurricane with winds of 285 km/h and a pressure of 906 HPA. It swept across the Gulf of Mexico, the southwestern part of Florida, and struck the Central American mainland. During the period from October 29 to November 3rd, due to its slow movement and the absorption of a massive amount of moisture from the Pacific Ocean and the Caribbean Sea, Hurricane Mitch unleashed a historic amount of rainfall over Honduras, Guatemala, and Nicaragua, with total rainfall reaching up to 1,900 millimeters, causing widespread flooding and landslides. In Honduras, 70% of crops were destroyed, the transportation system was paralyzed, tens of thousands of homes were damaged, and public infrastructure such as hospitals and schools became unusable. 1.5 million people were left homeless. In Nicaragua, the excessive rainfall caused the surface of the La Casita volcano to collapse, creating a volcanic mudflow that covered an area of approximately 128 km², resulting in the deaths of over 3,800 people and the loss of more than 50,000 livestock. Additionally, 75,000 landmines left over from the Contra-insurgency in the 1980s were dislodged by the floodwaters and carried to other locations. The unexpected explosions of smaller mines caused hundreds more to lose their lives. In the Caribbean Sea, a wave as high as 50 meters capsized a hundreds-ton sailing ship carrying 31 crew members. Additionally, during its journey towards the mainland of El Salvador, Hurricane Mitch caused flash floods and landslides across the country. Numerous rivers, including the Rio Grande, San Miguel, and Lempa, overflowed their banks. The floods resulted in 240 deaths, damaged 10,000 homes, and forced 500,000 people to evacuate to other areas. Mitch was also indirectly responsible for the deaths of 11 people when a plane crashed during the time the hurricane was raging. In total, the historic hurricane directly affected millions of people, resulted in over 11,000 deaths, and left 11,000 others missing. The total material damage amounted to $5 billion. The 1975 Super Typhoon Nina was one of the most devastating disasters of the 20th century. The historic flood on the Yellow River in 1931 claimed nearly 4 million lives, plunging China into decades of sorrow. Formed in the monsoon trough of the Northwest Pacific Ocean in 1975, it developed from a disturbance over the Philippine Sea, moving and intensifying into a tropical depression on August 3rd, with winds of 120 km/h, reaching a peak of 250 km/h, just shy of a Category 5 storm on the Saffir-Simpson scale. Typhoon Nina moved towards the Taiwan Strait and made direct landfall on the city of Bhola, an urban area located right on the Pacific coast. Continuous heavy rainfall across a wide area, reaching up to 700 millimeters, caused floods and landslides, destroying over 3,000 houses, resulting in 29 deaths and injuring 168 others. After sweeping through Taiwan, the typhoon temporarily weakened, leading neighboring countries to not intensify their precautionary measures. But true to a storm named after a woman, Nina's temperament was indeed very capricious and unpredictable. After a period of calm, Nina suddenly re-intensified and made landfall in China, sweeping through the provinces of Fujian, Jiangxi, and Haiyan. Generating 1,600 millimeters of rainfall over 3 days and nights, equivalent to a year's worth of rain in central China, the heavy rain, as described by the locals, made daytime as dark as night. On the mountains, flocks of birds flying through the intense rain fell to the ground dead. The farmers' crops were completely wiped out. But that was only the beginning. Nina's devastation reached its peak when it caused the Banqiao Dam failure, one of the largest dam failures in China's history. On August 7th, when the Banqiao hydropower plant, considered a masterpiece of human engineering, was capable of meeting 1/3 of the peak electricity demand of the entire United Kingdom, equivalent to 9 power plants or 20 nuclear reactors operating at a maximum capacity of 18 GWh. Heavy rainfall caused the water levels in the upper reaches of the rivers in the region to rise rapidly, putting pressure on the reservoirs and resulting in massive floods. When the floodwaters breached the dams one by one, Chumadian, where the Banqiao Dam was located, became the last barrier. Due to the rapid rise of floodwaters and the lack of timely response, at 1 a.m., the sky seemed to collapse, and the ground cracked open as nearly 10 billion cubic meters of water, equivalent to 280,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools, burst forth, creating waves up to 10 meters high that swept through the entire Chumadian area. The water, moving at speeds of up to 50 km/h, surged down the valley, taking down 62 more dams in a domino effect. In just a few minutes, entire villages, with hundreds of thousands of residents sleeping soundly, were submerged. Over 4 million people across 30 counties were surrounded by floodwaters, 5 million homes were swept away, and transportation was disrupted for 16 days. According to statistics, up to 26,000 people died immediately. 145,000 more perished later due to starvation and disease, bringing the estimated total death toll to 229,000. Property damage was estimated to reach $1.2 billion.